Hi, I'm Todd Jones, host of the podcast Pressbox Access. Here's a clip from my interview with Tim Smith. Tim recalls the vulnerability of Mike Tyson and how that ferocious fighter once asked him for forgiveness. When you think about Tyson, what comes to mind in your years of covering him?
Really just a vulnerable kid. And I still think that there's just some vulnerability still there. And I think that obviously, I'm not going to play amateur psychiatrist and put this guy on a couch or anything like that. But his whole persona was put forth to try to hide his weaknesses and his fears.
So the whole thing with wearing the black trunks, no robe,
the whole thing, the
towel,
intimidation, the whole thing, was all about, I'm gonna show you that I'm better than you. You're gonna be scared of me so that whatever fear I have inside doesn't come out. He used his own fear as a weapon, to try to make other people afraid of him, to build himself up. And I still remember there was an incident between me and him. I was like the only American reporter that had gone over to England to cover his fight against this British guy, Julius Francis, and he wasn't going to talk to any reporters or anything, but because I came over from America and he knew me, he agreed to do an interview with me. And I never will forget it. It was in a ballroom in the Grosvenor Hotel in London, and we had a long conversation. It was like a 45-minute chat. We had a long conversation, and at the end of the conversation, and you as a reporter, you just try to get out of a conversation on an upbeat note. So I asked him. I said, have you ever, what did you do in London that was fun? Did you have any fun while you were here?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see any sights? And he said, yeah, I saw Big Ben. And he said, I went to Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. And, I said to him, I said, well, it's a famous museum. Do they have any figures of you in there? And he said, nah. And he said, no, they don't. But if they did, it would probably be in the Chamber of Horrors. Everybody in the room laughed, including Tyson. And I laughed and I was like, well, thanks, Mike, for the time. And I'm getting ready to walk away, and he grabs me by the arm. And I can still see it to this day. He grabs me by the arm, and he's drinking a bottle of water. And he sets the water down. He grabs me by the arm, and he says, I want to tell you something. And I was like, okay, Mike. And he says, he said, I want to tell you how people treat me. And he said, I was going through the museum in Hollywood, on Hollywood and Vine. He said, and I was in there with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I was going through a museum, and then he said, they took me to the Chamber of Horrors. And he said, and they had me in the Chamber of Horrors with all of these terrible people, Hannibal Lecter, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and I'm standing there. And he said, look how people humiliate me. He said, people always want to cause me pain. And he starts to choke up like he's about to cry.
Mm.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little sympathy. 20 seconds later, he's going, people are always, and he starts to get angry. He's like, people are always trying to make me feel pain. He said, that's why I only want to make people feel pain. I want to hurt people, make people feel pain. He said, I bet you're one of those people who want to cause me pain. And I'm like, Mike, no, I'm not one of those people. He said, I bet you are. He said, I want you to feel the same pain that I do. He said, and I hope you feel all the pain that I have inside of me. He said, I hope terrible things happen to you. I hope your kids get sick, and I hope they die.
Damn.
And I'm like, where did this come from? And then the PR guy goes, okay, interview's over. And I'm like, the interview was over when I tried to walk out, and he grabbed me and pulled me back. But he went on like an emotional roller coaster. He went from like nearly on the verge of tears to calming down to building this rage and this anger to lashing out at me. It was the most incredible thing that I've ever experienced in an interview in terms of just the roller coaster of emotions in about 90 seconds.
Wow. Wow.
And he still remembered that. And I remember when he was doing his Broadway one-man Broadway play with, like, I think
Right.
Spike Lee produced it. They were at the Nederlander Theater in New York, and I went to the press conference. And I saw Mike, and and he, and I interviewed Mike, and I knew him, and we knew each other, and I wouldn't say we were close, but he again, he grabbed me, like, after the interview. He grabbed me and he pulled me aside and he said, "You know what, Tim?" He said, he said something that's always bothered me. He said,
Hmm.
"What I did to you in England that time in
Really?
London." He's like, "You remember it?" I said, "Yeah, Mike, I remember it." He said, I got to ask you to forgive me
Hmm.
for what I did." And I said, "Mike, I forgot about it as soon as it happened." He said, "No," he said, "You shouldn't have forgot about it." He said, "It was a horrible thing that I said." He said, "I still remember what I said." He said, "It was a horrible thing that I said." He said, "I wish I had never said it." He said,
Hmm.
"Can you find it in your heart to forgive me for that?" And I said, "Yeah, Mike, I forgive you. I forgive you for it." He said, "Thank you. I appreciate you forgiving me for that." So there's like this, as he got older and where he is now. I mean, he's very self-aware now, but
Hmm.
he's still, like, I don't want to say crazy, because that's a clinical diagnosis, but there's still something that's not, right with him. And he has been, diagnosed with bipolar and all these other stuff. But the self-awareness that he has now, that, he would come up to me after all these years and just, like, apologize, that struck me, because I had forgotten all about it, but apparently it still bothered him.
Wow.
So the next opportunity he's had to say it, he said it. And, and it takes, to me, it takes a special person to come back and apologize for something that bothers them, whether it bothered you or not, but at least he was willing to make amends and everything.